Okay, so depression is something I've dealt with for a vast majority of my life, and until only recently did I finally more or less get over it. Now, what I mean by getting over it isn't just the, oh, I'm recovered, now I'm no longer depressed, but rather I don't let it control my life at all anymore, and I've become much happier with myself because of that. I'm sitting here making this video today because this is something that means a lot to me, and if it's able to help even one other person find some ways to overcome any sort of adversity that they're facing in their life, then this video is a success. So, for some backstory on why I'm depressed, it more or less comes down to two specific things, and that's my dad and my ex. Now, I'm not going to be going into specific detail about either of them, but they do play a part in my story, and as such, I'd like to share it with you. So, starting with the source of why I was depressed in the first place is my dad. Growing up with him was absolutely awful. Sure, he had his good moments, but it typically wasn't like that, and more or less consisted of mental and physical abuse. Always being dragged in the middle of my parents' arguments and being forced to pick a side, being told some absolutely disgusting shit that a father of all people should never tell their child, and then can't forget about being punched for no reason. There were several times in my life when I wanted to kill myself, run away from home, and otherwise just do anything I could to get away from that situation. I had a fake face to the world that showed I was happy, but deep down inside, all I ever craved for was death. And that's where my depression really started to set in. As my family was leaving the low income class and entering the middle income class, we started to have more food in the house and I took my pain out by eating. This was a habit that would continue for most of my life because at least when I was eating, I felt happy for a little bit. But the awful thing about that fact was the way my body started to get fat and I started to hate myself more and more and more and more. After my parents finally split up and we moved away from him, my depression ultimately got worse. It was weird because although my dad was no longer in the picture, all the pain I was feeling was growing by the day and I was lonely. I so badly wanted either friends or a girlfriend, but I didn't have either. All I had was this online persona in which when I was online, sure, it was fun, but as soon as those friends weren't online anymore, all I was stuck with was my thoughts. After living like this for about half a year, I finally started a relationship with my at the time girlfriend, Sierra. I remember being in English class and having a specific writing prompt. I don't remember exactly what it was, but I remember my answer. It went along the lines of, although we don't love ourselves, the love we share for each other is real, or something like that. I finally had a reason for living, and after some time of dating, we finally moved in together. Now, this is something we're both to blame for, but things fell apart pretty fast once we moved in together. We used to never argue over much, and suddenly we seemed to be clashing on everything. Now, I'm not trying to demonize her whatsoever, especially since I had my problems in the relationship, but a lot of the things I had to endure from said relationship just made me more and more depressed, and it seemed like she didn't really care. Eventually, there was a last straw for me, and we broke up. And that's when the weight of the world crashed down on me. I lost almost all my friends, I didn't have a lover anymore, and I was going back home with literally nothing. If I'm being completely honest, the plan was for me to kill myself once I got home. I had lost all will to live. I had reached my deepest, darkest bottom. But on that over 4 hour drive home, I reached out to as many people as I could. I eventually got in a call with a friend I hadn't spoken to in quite a long time, and he talked to me about my situation and helped me realize that the future isn't as bleak as I thought it to be. And that's when I decided to take action on my life. I decided I was going to go to the gym and fix my body issue. I was going to go back to college to get a good paying job, and I'm going to work on some of those flaws as a person. Each day that passed when I worked on those things, the easier it got. I put myself in uncomfortable situations where I was reaching out to friends I had done dirty or forgotten about, and they had forgiven me. I started going to the gym every day doing exercises to better my body, and since the breakup about 3 months ago, I've lost 30 pounds and I don't plan to stop until my weight is where I want it to be. But kind of breaking off on talking about what I specifically achieved, I want to talk about the mindset in which helped me tremendously. My key three were exercise, friends, and development. Without these three things, I don't think I'd be as happy as I am today. So I personally started with exercising, and that helped boost my morale about my body and help me focus on myself rather than my thoughts. Then moving on to friends, I started to connect with some coworkers, and although I've only hung out with one, shout out to Kylie, they were also a help in my mentality. Once again, especially Kylie. I would talk to her about the goals I was reaching, and she's been super supportive, but she's not the only one that's been supportive. There's been Link, Jose, Ashton, Mikey, Dylan, Kyle, Zanera. All these people helped me when I was at my lowest, and that is especially important to have to overcome depression. The only warning I'd say to this is having friends that don't actually support you are not real friends. But if you just put in a little bit of effort, you'll find the ones that are. And then lastly, development. For me, that's been setting goals for myself, going to college, and finding hobbies that better me as a person. For the goals aspect, I'll put on screen specifically some of the short and long-term goals I have for myself, as well as a realistic date on when I'd like to hit them. Some goals are more challenging on purpose, but it's inspired me to push myself harder to achieve them, and that's exactly what you should be doing as well. Self-improvement isn't something that's half-assed. It's hard work, and there will be days where you don't want to do it anymore, but those are especially the days where you push yourself to do what you don't want to do. Then there's also going back to college because I dropped out to live with my girlfriend. I decided I didn't want to work these lower end jobs that didn't pay well, so I decided to go back to college and continue to work for my degree, which as of right now is going spectacularly. I've changed my mindset to push myself as hard as I can to learn and do my best in school because I want my life to be as good as it can be. I've lived a shit life so far and I never want to go through that again. Then, as for the hobbies, I found some things to make me a more interesting person, as well as some that are important to know for daily life challenges. For example, I plan to learn some things about cars so I know how to do them myself, but I also want to be a more outdoorsy person and go kayaking and hiking. I know from experience that sheltering yourself inside away from the world is the easiest thing to do, but the longer you do it, the harder it is to break those habits and establish healthier ones. I know this is a pretty short video, but honestly all I can say is that the only thing that has to change to make yourself a happier person is to change your mindset. Maybe you can do it yourself, or maybe you need a trigger like I did to realize you have to make changes. However, the way that this may happen for you, just realize that you have people in your corner you may not even realize you have, and just push yourself to do better for yourself and only for yourself. If anyone has any questions about specific problems they may have, please feel free to leave a comment or ask in DMs on Discord. I'll do my best to help you guys out. Best of luck, everyone.